Welcome to Wild Nevadacast. I'm Dave Santina, coming to you from the great indoors, the studio at PBS Reno, and I'm with Mark Maynard, who is many things. He's an author. He's a professor of English creative writing and journalism at Truckee Meadows Community College. He's also a documentarian, a filmmaker, and that's why you're here today, because you've been all over the state of Nevada producing a documentary about the drink that is sort of considered Nevada's state drink, although unofficially at this point it has been apparently proposed in the legislature and defeated, but the Picon, right? The Picon Punch.
Picon Punch, yes.
And so you made a film about this.
We did.
Called Piconland.
Piconland, the quest for the perfect pecan punch.
And so you got to travel around the state. You got to take some road trips, which is what Wild Nevada has always been really about, is recreational travel, road trips around the state of Nevada. You got to do that to try out pecans and learn some history and meet some people. So
lots of tanks of gas, and got to some great places and met some real Nevada characters all over the state.
That sounds incredible.
It was awesome.
Sounds like a dream. So what inspired this? How did this happen?
I was at the University of Nevada, Reno School of Journalism, and took a documentary filmmaking class with Carrie Barber, who's an amazing filmmaker in and of herself. And a group of both graduate and undergraduate students got together, and I pitched this idea as a film. It was always something I had a lot of interest in growing up in the state. Had traveled the state with my dad since I was young, far too young to be drinking pecans. But we would spend a lot of, anytime we had a chance to go to a Basque boarding house on our road trips and get a big meal. And there was always this really fun animated group at the bar. Didn't seem to matter what time of day, if they were open for the big lunch or the family style lunch or in the evenings. And it just always kind of piqued my curiosity. And of course, my dad had some great stories about he and his friends and pecans. So it became sort of this legend kind of thing. And when I had a chance to do a documentary film, I thought, what a great sort of road trip movie to get around the state. And really the idea behind the film, and I think this comes through in the movie, is that the drink is much more of a ritual than it's not a cocktail you would probably go order at a fancy bar in Manhattan.
Right. Would they even know what it is?
No, they wouldn't. It's really regional, and there's some interesting stories behind kind of its origins and a lot of mystique behind it. But it's this ritual that people partake in, and so it became a great lens on sort of the Nevada Basque culture and the rural Nevada communities that it's such an important part of.
Okay, so you decide to tell this story. How do you do it? Where did this story take you? How did you make it happen?
Well, mostly my director of photography, Richard Benarski, and I would do road trips on the weekends. We were still in school. I was teaching, so we had to really squeeze time. As you know, Nevada's a real small state. Quick drive across the state in a weekend.
No problem.
We first of all got some great experts together on the film. Mike Higdon, who used to write for the Reno Gazette-Journal and does some great photography and writing still here in Reno, had done a ton of research on it. He was one of our first sort of experts. We knew that Dave Bobzian, when he'd been an assemblyman, had tried to get it to be sort of legally the official state drink. And, contacting people who own the bars, run the boarding houses, and sort of set up a list. And then we just hit the road. There was another person, Gage Smith, who has an amazing group called the Picon Drinkers of the American West.
That sounds like a fun club.
It's absolutely. And he does, a new T-shirt every year for the club and everything. So there's these really kind of quirky characters associated with it that we would start to find and just call them up and say, can we come sit and visit with you? And then we would sort of plan our road trip, map it out, Winnemucca and Elko in a quick weekend out and back. And so that's sort of how we got it going.
Well, I've been to Winnemucca and Elko a couple of times over the years, and I'm pretty sure that I had at least one pecan in one of those places, maybe more than one. So, what are the places you have to go to in those towns to get the pecan?
In Winnemucca, definitely the Martin,
Mhm.
and it's on the historical registry. I mean, it's worth it just to see the building itself. There's kind of a unique history to that. It used to be a brothel. It has these amazing Italian tin tiles on the wall that sort of tell their own unique story of what the building used to be. They have gatherings in the back room. They do live music. And most of these places, you don't just go for the pecans, you go for the food. You
Yeah.
get this Western American Basque cuisine, which is, different in some of the different places that you go, but it's these amazing multi-course meals. You sit down family style, you sit with a bunch of strangers, leave with a bunch of friends by the end of the night.
Yep.
So definitely the Martin in Winnemucca.
We were well treated in the Martin for one of the Wild Nevada episodes.
Absolutely.
And it was a long night
Yes.
and a really enjoyable and memorable night. But yeah, if you go into a place like that to have the meal, give yourself the grace of some time and look at it as an experience.
Absolutely.
And almost like it's a cultural experience in a way.
Absolutely.
You're being introduced to this way of life, and there is nothing I don't like about a big long meal full of great food.
No, and it just keeps coming. It's really fun, to bring somebody new to a Basque restaurant and watch them eat that first course, start really loading the French fries on their plate, and then they start bringing oh no, that was just the soup and the salad. Here comes the platter of steaks. Here come the
Right.
oxtails, and by the end, you're sipping the wine that they keep pouring, and you maybe got a few pecans on the table, and they have this great feeling of satisfaction, and then they start bringing out the ice cream and the dessert, and it's definitely an experience, and you have to pace yourself.
So that's the Martin in Winnemucca, and then you were also in Elko.
We were in Elko. We went to the Star, which is sort of the ubiquitous Basque hotel there, and they still have these places that a lot of people think of as restaurants were originally boarding houses. And
Yep.
so the Basque sheep herders who would be out in the fields for most of the year in the winter would come and live in these boarding houses, and that's why there are these big meals. They would ring a bell and bring them, downstairs for dinner, and that was part of, their room and board. And even though there aren't any more boarders in any of these, Scotty Yagoa out at the Star is converting some of those rooms upstairs into hotel rooms so people can kind of have that experience. You'll still hear the bell get rung like they used to for the boarders. And so, it's not just enjoying a meal. It's not just a foodie experience or a cocktail experience, but you're kind of living history of those places as well.
When you were mentioning Winnemucca, I had a flashback to what turned out to be a boarding house. I had no idea that it was the Winnemucca Hotel,
Yes.
which no longer exists.
Right.
But we did an episode of Wild Nevada in the Winnemucca Hotel and had not visited in advance. We didn't really do a lot of scouting. That's
Right.
a long way away from
Yeah.
home. So you just call somebody, arrange for a place to stay. And they were very accommodating, happily traded rooms for a mention of the fact that we've stayed there.
Sure.
And, the oldest hotel in the state, as it was being described at the time. I thought, well, this is fantastic. What a deal. And then you show up, and the first floor
Yep.
was a bar and a Basque restaurant.
Yep.
And we had a fantastic experience. I think that was my first ever pecan,
Okay.
was at that bar. And then we had a lovely meal after which Chris Orr and I retired. She went to her room. I went to my room, which was upstairs, and realized, this is not really a hotel.
Yeah.
This is a sort of a flop house at this point.
Right.
And they didn't care if we They didn't need to have us pay for rooms because those rooms were empty no matter what and unkept. There was no lock on the door. The beds looked like they were borrowed from a local prison. The bathroom was a shared bathroom down the hall, where you realize back in the day that was pretty common.
Yep.
But there was no lock on that door either. It was not the greatest experience.
No turn down service?
No turn down service. I actually put a chair under a doorknob like I was in a movie, just to give myself some sense of security. Sure. And then turns out that our producer and our audio guy realized that evening that they had forgotten something back in Reno. Batteries, they claimed, and they came back and spent the night in Reno and drove back out in the morning early to get to us. And I'm still not convinced to this day that they just didn't look around and say, no, we're going to go home and sleep in our own beds. But I can't prove it. It's just a thought. But that's what my first memory of a Picon is, in that no longer existing hotel.
Yes.
Which was the least hotel-like of any hotel I've ever stayed in my life, and has now been razed to the ground. So maybe that says it all right there.
Well, that's an interesting point, though, and that's something that we cover in the movie, is that to run one of these places is a real commitment. And they've been family-run for generations, and we touch on this a little bit in the film. There was a really well-established one in Bakersfield called the Noriega that closed a little bit before we were doing the movie. And, we were interviewing somebody out at the Martin, and they were saying, they just got tired. They just wore out. And it's, you get into second and third and fourth generations in these families, and some of the kids want to go and do other things. These towns are changing.
Sure.
And so, there is a little bit of pressure on these places, and it's a really important history. So, we hope that people will go and support those and go really understand and appreciate them while they can. There's some good news too. When we originally shot the film, the Santa Fe here in Reno had closed down, and it's now reopened. It's called the Fe, and it's got a little bit more of kind of a sports bar theme. It's a modern Basque place, but it still has more of the Basque country pinchos, which are like the tapas there. And so it's fun to see sort of this get reinvented, but still stay and keep that heritage, but also do new things with it as well.
I think that's the way to keep it alive.
Absolutely.
But the origins stay as the foundation. So,
yes, absolutely.
And so this drink, did it originate in Nevada? It's considered a Nevada drink.
It's considered a Nevada drink. It really, as somebody in the film calls it, it's a Western American cocktail creation, and that's kind of the best way to describe it. It really originated in San Francisco because that was sort of the point of disembarkation for a lot of the Basque immigrants coming over, and they would often travel by train to these different places where they would get contract jobs to herd sheep and cattle, a lot of those in California's Central Valley or in northern Nevada. So somewhere in San Francisco, the cocktail originated, and then it came, on the train into these boarding houses. The reason it's called a Picon Punch, and a lot of people will hear pecan and think of the nut. It's spelled differently. It's Picon, and that is kind of an interesting story in itself. Gaetano Picon was an Italian serving in the French army in Algeria, North Africa, and developed this liqueur that he named after himself, obviously, that had quinine in it because of its anti-malarial properties in North Africa.
Okay.
So after the war, he returned to France and started a company that is still around today. You can still get Picon in France, particularly, but it's not what was in the original Picon Punch. It's much lower in alcohol, and it has a different flavor. And in France, they pour it in beer. You can order in France a Picon beer.
Okay.
and you sort of pour it on top, and it's this sort of orange flavored liqueur. The original pecan came over with the Basque immigrants to San Francisco, and at some point, pecan stopped being made or imported, and there's all kinds of legends about it has a certain ingredient in it that's not allowed to be imported, all of this. So you've probably seen or heard of the Torani flavored syrups that people will mix in coffee and things like that. That Italian family in San Francisco started to distill their own version of an Amer Picon.
Okay.
That's called Torani Amer. And that's where, if you walk into any bar in Nevada and you see that bottle of Torani Amer on the back bar, they will make you Picon Punch. The other thing you can do is you can look for the glasses, which have a really unique shape. They're actually the same glasses that were developed in San Francisco for the Irish coffee. So
Okay.
the glass company Libby makes those as Irish coffee glasses, but those are sort of the traditional Picon Punch glasses.
We have a couple of them here, and I'm looking at them now thinking, that's a familiar shape.
Yes. It's in Nevada, that's sort of the chalice, the Holy Grail. You look for that, and that means pecans.
If you see these
are
glasses
served here.
by the bar, you can
good.
get a pecan.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Winnemucca and Elko, of course, and then your trip extended beyond that. You had to go out and get something closer to the Reno area.
We did multiple trips. We also went down to Wellington in Smith Valley, and there's a great old stage stop there called the Heyday Inn. And they make a great pecan. So we went, and that's actually where we went and met Gage Smith of the Pecan Drinkers of the American West. That's kind of his home bar.
Got it.
And so he invited us down there so that we could see that. And then from there, we came up through Gardnerville and went to JT, which is an amazing historical Basque restaurant.
That's a very well-known place. I've heard that name many times.
Yes, absolutely. Famous for their, dollar bills on the ceiling, and one of those, you feel like you're in an Old West saloon. And they do it differently. They don't use those traditional glasses. They use a little short highball glass. So that's kind of their trademark. The star in Elko does not put club soda, which is one of the key ingredients to a pecan, unless you're from Elko, and then you say, no way does club soda go in a pecan. And so, we asked Scotty Yagoa, the owner of that, about that. And, we were expecting this real cultural reason for that. And he said he talked to a previous owner, and one night in, I think, the 1960s or 70s, the bar was out of club soda, and they made pecans without it. And then they just said, okay, this is how we do it now.
All right.
So that's how things get started. After we did JT in Gardnerville, we went to the Overland there as well. They do a great pecan. And then, we had to hit Reno, and we did Louis' Basque Corner. The Santa Fe was not open at the time. As I said, it's now reopened. And, there are a lot of non-Basque bars that have adopted the pecan as well. It's a Basque American cocktail, but it's also a Nevada cocktail. So a lot of the early Italian families that started restaurants and bars, they saw this cocktail. They said people really like it, so they would adopt it. So Casale's Halfway Club has it.
Sure.
The Coney Island in Sparks has it. So you'll find it, the Copenhagen in Sparks. So it has become, it still has those Basque roots, and it's still, I would definitely still call it a Basque Nevada cocktail, but it's also a Nevada cocktail.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder about my family. My grandparents came from Italy on my father's side to Elko, worked on the railroad. And I now wonder if they were drinking pecan back then.
They likely were.
This was in the early 1900s, 1910 to 1920.
The timing would be about right.
I had no idea. See, my grandparents weren't alive long enough for me to get old enough to have a drink with them.
It's a family tradition.
Maybe they would have toasted me with a
Absolutely.
pecan. That would have been fun to do. Well, I will try to carry it on even without them, and be a representative
in their honor.
In their honor, it's only the right thing to do.
It is.
So road trips are a blast usually, and people are the reason. You meet people on the road. You don't know who you're going to meet up with. Sometimes you have surprises. Sometimes you have, scheduled meetings. But I always enjoy the people more than anything on road trips. And did you make connections? Did you make friends? Did you meet people you didn't expect to meet?
Absolutely. The first and foremost is we were meeting with a lot of the bartenders, the owners, the managers of these places, and they're not employees; they're caretakers. They're caretakers of a tradition. The family that runs JT, it's multiple generations. We spoke with one of the younger generation, Etienne, and he was amazing. He's so passionate about the tradition, the culture, the food, the drink. He was on his way on a ski trip to Colorado, and his goal was to drink pecans at the top of all the 14,000-foot peaks that he could. So I still haven't heard if he reached his goal or not. But, it's this great sort of portable thing that, it's amazing that the drink hasn't caught on in other places. It still kind of stays in this region.
Right.
Because it's fun. The one thing is you hardly ever see anybody in one of these places drink a pecan by themselves.
It's a social drink.
It's a social drink. And even if they've gone in by themselves, if somebody sees that glass in front, it's come over here, come on, where you can't drink a pecan by yourself.
It's almost like a signal.
Absolutely.
To others. Hey, I'm having a pecan. I'm open for some socializing.
Absolutely. And even though it's a fairly complicated drink to make, I mean, there's a few steps to it. You go to some of these places and you'll see the bartenders will line a dozen up and make them all at once because
they know
there's a big party that needs that. Somebody can't get a head start on these. You really got to know who's had how many because it matters. John Aran out at the Martin, who has owned it for years, was amazing and gracious and gave us, great background and insight into it. Scotty Yagoa out at the Star in Elko, and then we stopped at a newer place, the Ogie Deli. And
where is that?
It's right in downtown Elko, not too far from the Star. Has an amazing mural on the side of the traditional Basque cider, where they pour it from this sort of amazing height to aerate it. So they have you can find Ogie with that mural on the side, but they've done something interesting, and it was one of the first times we tasted a sort of newfangled pecan. The depot here in Reno distills their own amer that is, and that's what Picon is it's an amer. It's a traditionally Italian style of a liqueur. It's very usually herbal, sort of an aperitif. So, pecans are also very good for the digestion. That's my medical advice. That
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So
I will take that under advisement.
Yes.
Now, we have, I was going to ask you if there is a most authentic recipe or if everybody has their own version to the point now where there is almost no clear original or authentic version.
It's a great question, and because we sort of tongue-in-cheek, subtitled the film "The Quest for the Perfect Picon Punch," people will often ask me, "Well, where's the best? What's the most authentic?" And I've lived in this state most of my life. I'm a native Nevadan, and I'm smart enough to know not to wade into that and have an opinion on that because it really does depend on where you're from. And there's very much a home team pecan in Nevada, and you talk to people and they will tell you that Bruno's in Gerlach has the best, or the Star in Elko. It's
provincial.
It's provincial, and it's it's very personal.
Do not stir up trouble by questioning the quality of the local.
Yes,
Got
exactly.
It. Speaking of stirring, you have been kind enough to bring ingredients so that we could actually sample one of these.
Absolutely.
I would love to try the Mark Maynard version of the pecan.
Sure.
Is it picon or pecan? Can you say pecan?
You can say pecan. You can say pecan. I mean, That's what's so interesting about it, and that's what I love about the drink is, you would have to ask the Italian infantryman who was in the French army in
Right.
Algeria how he pronounced his last name correctly in the 1800s. So,
Fair enough.
in France, they'll pronounce it a certain way. Of course, you have both, the Basque country being sort of provinces, some that are within Spain, some that are within France. They have their own language. If you get close when you order it, they'll know what you mean.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's make one.
Sure.
Introduce me to these ingredients as you bring them up.
Sure. So the first thing is we've got you want to have ice. So let me grab my ice real quick.
Oh yeah, I grabbed a bowl of ice earlier just to
it is
contribute something.
Like Revenge the Picon is a drink best served cold. So we always put it on ice.
Very nice. Well, as you're scooping and we get great sounds of ice clinking and falling onto the table here. I will shout out the documentary. It won an award in the big, what is it?
The Dam Short Film
Festival in 2023, in February of 2023. It won Best Nevada Film, and that's in Boulder City, right?
That's in Boulder City, hence the Dam Film Festival for Hoover Dam. And that's what's really interesting is that it's this very Nevada cocktail, and yet you won't find it in Las Vegas. And you also really won't find the Basque food or a Basque boarding house in Las Vegas.
And is that because just there was no one there at the time that the Basque were?
It wasn't as you can imagine from the geography and the climate. It
Right.
wasn't a real great place to herd sheep or cattle, which is kind of when the Basques came over. Those were the jobs.
There's
they
a
found.
reason people don't wear wool jackets in Las Vegas.
So
why would a sheep want to be there?
Exactly. So there is a great Basque club in Las Vegas. It's the Lagoon Onak Basque Club, and because I realized when we went to the Dam Film Festival, the festival people were so kind, and they decided to celebrate. At the after party, they were going to make Picon Punches. So they started calling bartenders in Las Vegas and saying, "What's in it? What are the ingredients?"
Right.
And these bartenders were saying, what are you talking about? Are there pecan nuts? Is it like a pecan pie? Like what? So one bartender knew kind of Amer, was an Italian, so gave some adjacent things. I think they ended up with Aperol, and so it was amazing. It was a lovely gesture they did, but there were these very sort of orange Gatorade colored cocktails.
No, I mean, I love an Aperol Spritz, but I'm not looking to make an Aperol Picon.
With Aperol with a float of brandy on top, I don't recommend. So, but that got me, curious as to why, you think of Basques in Nevada as such a ubiquitous thing. And in doing a little research and in researching this club, really the Basque culture grew in Las Vegas in the 1970s and 80s when a lot of the best highlight players in the world, which highlight is this really fast ball sport. I met some of the players and they brought one of the balls. And even though they're hard rubber covered in goat skin, I would describe it as about the size, density, and hardness of a pool ball.
Okay.
And they hurl these things with a wicker basket at close to 200 miles an hour,
right,
on this walled court. And but that was sort of one of the seeds of the Basque community in Las Vegas were the highlight players that came in. So there weren't the Basque clubs, there weren't the restaurants, the traditions weren't there. So it wasn't until these players came over and they sort of met each other and got married, and their families sort of created this community, but it doesn't have that boarding house history, and the cocktail kind of never made it there.
Makes
so
sense.
If Las Vegas is looking for a way to really add some culture and a new drink, it would be great to see it make it down to Southern Nevada.
Well, I think you're winning that award down in Boulder City is an introduction. It's a
It was
way
fantastic.
to introduce it.
We had people from the Las Vegas club came to watch the film, and people actually drove from far and wide in Nevada to come see that when they heard there was a Picon film. I think some people
exciting.
came from Winnemucca.
Well, I'd love to see it broadcast on PBS Reno someday if we can make that work.
That would be fantastic.
And maybe to have a screening up here. That's it's
Sure.
You're from this area. Your film ought to screen as many times as possible here. I know you've had many and will continue to have many. But,
Yes, we hope
I'd love to see if we could do something to get you a screening here with our Tied with Wild Nevada.
That would be
a lot of fun.
wonderful. We'd love to celebrate it with as many people as possible.
So let's finish
Sure.
making this drink. What do we've got here?
So we've got our pecan glasses in there filled to the brim with ice, and then this is a little pomegranate. And as you'll see in the film,
You're very delicate
gotta have
with
a
that.
steady hand. It is really just a splash
Wow,
of
the
that.
tiniest drop. See, to me, that's an accident.
That's
It looks like an accident.
exactly. It's been called one of the bartenders. I think it was Craig at Louis said that you threaten the glass with grenadine.
Yeah, it looks like you change your mind in the middle of it.
So this is the traditional Tarania Mare. This is that label. And actually, it's really fun if you go out into some of the grocery stores in rural Nevada. I've seen this in Ely. You go into the liquor section, and that's how you know you're in a pecan town, is if you see this at the grocery store.
Okay.
So that people can make it at home or in the field. And then we really go just about 3/4 up with that.
I see. That is a significant portion. Now, this is the same Tarani that I'm used to seeing with a colorful label.
It's the same company that makes it. Yes.
Okay, because I'm used to the I think it's for Italian soda, where they put flavored Tarani on. I see that on shelves, and maybe I'm confusing it with something else.
No,
but
this is
pretty
this.
sure that's
It's
it.
the same family.
Okay.
That made this, and this goes way back. It was an Italian family in the Bay Area. So I'm tipping my hand here. Apologies to people in Elko. I am going to do a little club soda here, just so that you can.
Hey, this is the Maynard version. You don't have to apologize for anything. You bring me a drink in the middle of the morning, I'm never going to complain.
So we've got a little club soda in there, and then because this is pretty high proofed, but not quite enough. So this is 78 proof, just to make sure. You've got to float some brandy on top.
Of course.
So you want to make sure that you get that nice, full, high octane.
Ooh, and this is
pecan.
not. So you float it. You don't stir this in.
You float it, and then
I
now
see.
we stir.
You have a tool.
And there is a very, it really, this is also bar specific, how many times it is stirred.
Oh, really? What is the rule?
It depends on the bar. And,
Okay.
and when you watch the film, different bartenders will give their different recipes. And not only the number of times it's stirred, but also, is it clockwise? Is it counterclockwise? Some do sort of a serpentine. The stirring is very important. And then the lemon on top is very important. And you give it that twist and get that lemon oil in there.
This is making me feel ready.
And
My mouth's watering a little bit.
Etienne at the JT in Gardnerville says that the lemon on top makes it look like a Basque man. He says that's the beret that goes on top. So
All right. It's not just a decoration.
Work our
It
way
has
around
a
the
purpose.
microphone,
All right. Yeah.
so-
This is the scary part where I
Yes.
try not to spill anything on electronics.
Yes.
But, now I understand from Scott Igoa at the Star from our show Food Notes. We did a segment at the Star, and he said that the toast that they use is osasuna.
Osasuna. We were trying to figure out. So this is new information. Now we'll have to do the director's cut.
So if you're a listener, if you're able to go to pbsreno.org and find Food Notes, the episode at the Star, you'll see Scott say osasuna. So we can say that osasuna.
Osasuna.
Let's give it a try. I'm going to sit back a moment so that I do not spill this into anything that costs money. Oh, that is powerful.
Yes.
That is, it's known for its strength, and it definitely brings it. And I got to admit, I was a little worried because we're recording this relatively early on a weekday, and I haven't eaten breakfast yet, and all I have done is brush my teeth, and I thought I've just ruined my palate for the day. But this is good. This is a strong flavor, but for someone who, I don't go for incredibly strong drinks normally.
Sure.
But I'm going to have another sip.
And it's interesting, and this was something that that Mike Higdon brought up when we interviewed him in the film, is that there haven't been a lot of people that have experimented much with this. I brought a couple of other Amers. As I said, the depot in Reno makes one now, and that's the one that we tried at Ogie Deli. Does a really nice. And all Amers have different flavors and flavor profiles to them. So I recommend that people that are interested in pecans and have tried them with the Torani, try them with especially the depot, because this was really intended to be made for pecans. A lot of the other Amers have similar flavor profiles, but they're more generally Amers. A lot of those are Italian. There's a place in Colorado that makes one called Golden Moon that's good in a pecan, but it's fun to kind of riff on it a little bit too.
Yeah, I think that this is a kind of drink you can customize a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, it's funny that the people mistakenly spell it like the nut, because it does have a bit of a nutty flavor to me. And I'm no food host, so I don't have the palate to describe and to feel the nuances. But this is a drink that a lot of people talk about getting through one, and then getting to your second one, which you like more. I like this one. There are a couple of sayings I read about this. The first one's the pecan, the second one's the punch.
Yes,
and then the classic is one's not enough and three's too many.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I could do more than one of these.
Sure.
This is actually more flavorful than I remember, and easier going down. Now, it's possible that over the years I've greased the skids for it a little bit with other drinks, but I think that this is quite tasty. I would order this.
Yes,
and probably I might go with one too many. I probably would end up with the third one and be sorry, but it's really good. And so my compliments to the bartender.
Well, thank
you for bringing this in. It's delicious.
Well,
and
thank you for being a great host and allowing us to do this.
I love it.
We're coming up on 10 in the morning. So.
I know it's a silly time of morning to be doing this. Although, as you say, this is authentic because in those bars across the state of Nevada, there are people right now having pecan.
Absolutely.
So we are in league with them.
Yes.
It's in spirit with them.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we need to wrap it up. We've already taken more of your time than we intended. But where can we find you? Where can we find more information or find you online?
The best way to find information about the film is on Instagram, and the handle is Piconland, Piconland. And whenever we're doing local showings, whenever we're at festivals, we've been in festivals actually all over the world. This is shown in Albania. It is shown in France. We took it to Texas. And hopefully we'll be doing some more local showings soon. So please check us out on Instagram at Piconland.
Nice. Thank you. And I have checked that out a little bit, and I see it. You are continually updating it. It is.
Yes.
The film itself was completed a while ago, but you are still having showings, and you're updating with the latest as you go along. And
we are.
I think that's a lot of fun, and
we want to get it out there, and we want people to see it. And we've Hialdi, which is the big Basque festival that happens every 5 years in Boise, is happening in 2025.
Nice.
So we hope to get up there with it, and so it's really fun. It's a celebration.
Beautiful. I'm so excited that I got to meet you again and go through the story of your Piconland. And let's come back and talk more about other Nevada stories down the road.
Please, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. All right. I want to remind everybody to watch Wild Nevada on PBS Reno via broadcast or live stream on pbsreno.org or by the YouTube channel. Also, if you have a question about Wild Nevada or maybe a comment or a suggestion of any kind, send them to me at podcasts@pbsreno.org. Well, thank you, Mark Maynard. And I thank you for listening to Wild Nevadacast.